I have two possible visions. I have it looking like it did in, say, the 1980s with a lot of people back here, or looking like the other island that's 40 miles away with, say, 90 people.
Hello, and welcome back to the fourth episode of Tipping the Iceberg. I'm your host, Silja Zimmermann, and I invite you to join me on a journey to explore the food system of St. Paul Island, Alaska. In this episode, we learn about initiatives and plans that have the potential to transform the current food system and create a more positive future for St. Paul Island.
There's one in the basket where I have the kale. It's huge. It looks like a small beet. I thought it was a beet at first.
This is Serafima Merculief. She recently started working as a community garden tech at the local community garden, and she loves her job.
Yes, I do. When I got my interview, I did say I will put my heart into this, and I have been. I did get fact sheets for this, and Emily was all excited. She said that was a great idea. From what she said, I guess they haven't done that before.
Serafima invited me to visit her at her workplace, the community garden, because today is the day of the very first harvest.
This is the first time you're going to harvest anything from this new garden, right?
Yes. I'm excited. I don't have any plants at home, so gardening is new completely to me. I've been learning from watching videos, and it's been exciting for me.
Serafima and I harvest kale today. Serafima then delivers the kale to elders in the community.
I'm going to cut up kale and take it to the elders. Right now, as far as I know, when we get vegetables, we're going to be delivering them to elders. I deliver the kale. I printed some kale fact sheets, and it just states what's good in kale for you and shows how to clean it, and there's a recipe in there.
But gardening is new for Serafima, and so the garden still has some surprises in store for her.
Can you tell me a little bit about the garden? Like, what kind of stuff are you growing here?
As far as I know, cabbage. I'm not sure about this here. Might be parsley. Some of the writings have rubbed off. It says Yaya. Oh, carrots. Okay, those are carrots. Kale. And I think lettuce. Over here is more carrots. And I can't read the tag for what those vegetables are. But I just found out that's radish, and I'm not sure about the other one either because the writing has rubbed off. Right here we have a compost bin, and I had to learn from watching videos on how to handle it. Right now it has coffee grounds, leaves, and other stuff. It's okay to leave coffee filters in there. I need to get, I think it's called green and brown compost. And brown compost, it separates like the leaves and, whatever is good for the compost. And it just kind of separates it so it doesn't all mold up and get rotten.
So there is a community garden on St. Paul. Sure, it is small, but the community is small too. And the garden is still in its early stages.
I think I'm done with the kale. Maybe we could pull up some radishes to go with the kale.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll probably get enough for 10 elders for now.
Even if the garden is small, it can make a real difference in a small community like the one on St. Paul Island, because it can make fresh vegetables more readily available to the community.
I've been speaking to so many community members, and I hear everyone around here complain about the high food prices and the bad quality of produce that you get out here. So to me, this seems like the perfect way to tackle some of these challenges. What do you think?
I think so. When I was making my smoothie yesterday, my yogurt was moldy. So I had to redo it. I still used yogurt. So it's probably something they can't control, because sometimes the things get shipped to the airlines and they don't handle it properly, I don't think. I think that sometimes when it gets handled at the airlines, they let them thaw out and then they chill them or freeze them again. And then sometimes we get produce that's, I don't know if I should be saying this, that's completely no good. It's draining out from the what it was shipped in. So yeah, it does get really bad sometimes.
Small initiatives like the community garden can help to overcome such problems and strengthen the local food security of the St. Paul Island community. And apart from the food bank and the community garden, there are more initiatives that can contribute to a better future for St. Paul. The garden is only a small part of a big plan called Prime. To learn more about Prime, I meet Lauren Devine again. You already know her from the first episode.
So PRIME is an acronym. It stands for the Pribilof Islands Marine Ecosystem. So this PRIME initiative is a multi-pronged approach that our tribal government has adopted. And it's kind of this multifaceted initiative that we're working across all of our departments in the tribal government. I mentioned some of the departments earlier, but we have multiple departments, lots of people working towards these initiatives, such as a Bering Sea campus and research center. That initiative, or that piece of the initiative, is built on creating jobs, creating workforce opportunities. And through the research center, we have this unique opportunity to create kind of a world-class research center to bring in partners to do climate change research, to do animal and wildlife research around a focus of rebuilding and sustaining the ecosystem. So back the health of the ecosystem, let's figure out what we can do and come up with real solutions, and all very place-based. And so that's kind of the goal of the research center. And the campus then would support that. As we're bringing in researchers and building out networks, there are jobs like technician positions and laboratory assistants, teaching opportunities. I think there's a lot of different jobs that could be developed that then we want to have a campus that can provide the educational opportunities to train people and get them ready for those positions. I think then some of the other ones are as diverse as tourism, bringing in different tourist opportunities where people are bringing funds in to contribute to the local economy, and then you bring in external dollars that can circulate in the community from there, right? So you're increasing the local economy, and those kinds of funds can be used to help us address the kind of food security issues that we want to address. So research is a big key of food security. We know there's a lot of research to be done and that we need to do to come up with some of these creative solutions, but we also have other pieces of our PRIME initiative, like mariculture. So can we recover crab species by growing them in a mariculture setting, like a hatchery, and then outstocking them and supplementing the wild population? Over time, those kinds of things can rebuild a population, which definitely provides more potential economic opportunities in the future for us for harvesting. That also has a linkage to food security, right? But then we also have a need to conserve the marine environment. And so we have a whole marine conservation initiative, and we're doing a lot there around food security because so much of our resources are marine derived. They're from the ocean, they're from the marine ecosystem, and we really want to take an ecosystem approach to that. And so part of that is looking at area-based conservation. Can we designate an area around the Pribilofs as important and look at some conservation actions that we can have there? There's some beautiful models from across the globe. There's, indigenous protected and conserved areas. There are marine protected areas. There are areas that function to protect indigenous subsistence rights and access, but also limit other activities that could threaten that. And so I think all of these things really contribute to increasing food security in little or big ways as we look at it into the future, and we have to start building now. And so because we have so many things that we're trying to improve or work on around food security, we really had to take this kind of multifaceted, multi-pronged approach.
Wow, that sounds like pretty big plans for the future. But let's take one step back. What exactly is the role of the community garden in all of this?
So we do have a community garden and greenhouse project, and it's ever evolving, and it is related to our Prime initiative, but it's more related to the food security goals that we have. So right now, it's an effort between the Ecosystem Conservation Office, my department, ECO, and the Community Healing and Wellness Department, which is really focused on this food security issue. And definitely deepening connections back to lands and waters, to natural resources, and really looking at it from the nutritional health of people, right? Physical and mental health, but also the spiritual connections and health of Onanga as the, strengthening the culture. And so gardening is very hard on St. Paul. We have a cold climate, we have very high winds, we get a lot of really harsh weather that just makes growing seasons very short, not a lot of sunshine, a lot of cloudy days. And so the vegetation that grows on the island is very specific, and there are a lot of edible plants, and there's medicinal plants that have traditional uses in Onanga culture, but gardening is one way for us to tap into agricultural practices and adapt them to work for St. Paul and to provide healthy access to produce for the community. This is also kind of multi-pronged approach, because what we want to do is we have hydroponics operations that have provided lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, some of the more warm climate, not traditionally grown on St. Paul type of produce to the community, but we also are using cold frames and outdoor growing to really supplement the indoor growing that we do and to get it out in front of people more. So it's in a very central location. We have a community garden we've been working on for years, and we're constantly adapting it, expanding it, tweaking it based on what works and what doesn't work. And it's just a big trial and error experiment where we're growing what we can based on community preference and community needs and what grows out there and what can be stored easily, like potatoes, carrots, beets, turnips, those kinds of things, and a lot of like root crops. But also those things are not exactly familiar to people either. And so there's a whole educational piece that goes along with it of educating people to what we're growing and why and how they can use it and prepare it and why they should be eating it and consuming it. And just generally increasing the kind of health aspect and the nutritional aspect of our elders, of our community members, certainly of youth, everyone. It is definitely an intergenerational piece of our food security work, is the education of what we're doing to grow food and why, and how other people can do it, in hopes that we'll kind of strengthen the excitement of people to grow their own food. I think is the end goal, is how can we be providing food for the community on a large scale, but then how can we also encourage people to get really comfortable growing their own food and maybe having their own garden plot at their homes, or growing something inside on a tabletop, hydroponic system, something like that. And so we're really trying to diversify out what we're doing around gardening to make it much more familiar and accessible to our community as well, because it's not something that was historically very, very familiar.
Okay, that all sounds pretty good. But does such a community garden really solve the most crucial problems of the community? Remember, one of the biggest challenges the community is currently facing is the crash of the crab fishing industry, and the fact that the community is so dependent on income from the fishing industry.
Part of Prime initiative is that diversification of the economy. And the reason for that is because of the decline of fisheries and income that comes into the local economy. When we have crab crashes, fish crash, quotas go down, we're losing access to resources. And so in diversifying the economy, one thing that we've looked at is, and this is totally unique to St. Paul, I think, is a reindeer herd that is doing quite well, which we typically, when we hear of caribou or reindeer in other communities or other kind of Arctic environments, there's a real unknown of how reindeer will perform in a warmer climate. They're traditionally thought of as very cold climate. They need lichen to survive. Well, our reindeer herd has overgrazed the lichen that is on this small little island in the Bering Sea long ago, and thus transitioned pretty quickly into and adapted their diet to something that's more cattle-like cows graze grass all day. That's kind of what our reindeer have started doing, and they're accessing this really rich source of vegetation on the island because of the warming climate. So it's almost a silver lining for the species, for a reindeer. It's like kind of like a happy potential story of how reindeer could adapt to climate change in the future and actually come out as a positive story. And because we have this uniquely adapted diet for our reindeer, we have a herd that is doing quite well. And the idea that we have is to develop a field to market, not just to local market, but potentially for export markets as well. And I like this idea, and I'm excited about this project for our food security because we do have a community that utilizes our reindeer herd for subsistence, but not everyone can hunt, and the price of ammo is increasing, and it's something that we've seen be more or less popular in any given year, depending on what the community is doing and how many people are out there hunting. The weather certainly plays in, but if what we can do is develop a field to market process where we have a team that goes out, harvests our reindeer, butchers it, and begins to process it for sale in the local store, we can do it at a cheap or an affordable price. We can guarantee access and consistent access to a really healthy, organic, grass-fed protein for our community, which is very preferable to any of the frozen, long market chain meats that we might get that might sit in the store for months and months and months and degrade in quality. But we could really look at providing a consistent, high quality protein for our own community. The idea would be not just to offer it in the grocery store at affordable prices, but also to be able to harvest enough reindeer to offer it in our local food bank for people that can't afford it in the local grocery store. They could also access it from the food bank and from food bank services that we operate on island. The other piece of that is that we have the potential to export the reindeer meat that we would harvest after we've applied, local market and food bank meat to the equation. Whatever we surplus from that could go to sale off island, which would generate additional income that would be brought to the island and could be used to help supplement grocery store prices, more food for the food bank for families that are in need. It could help other activities around food security, like strengthening a community garden, a cold cellar, growing operations that we would implement on island to also help out with food security and nutrition on island. So the reindeer field to market project is a really interesting one because it's looking at different markets to generate income that would all come to island and strengthen our economy and really diversify it out from where we're at now, which is virtually dependent on fisheries.
Prime, the community garden, the food bank, all these initiatives were once planted as small seeds. If they get what they need to thrive, they can grow into a better future. The Bering Sea Research Center is another initiative that I want to take a closer look at. The Ecosystem Conservation Department is already doing a great job in monitoring the local ecosystem and its important subsistence food sources. Next, I join Hannah Helene for one day at her job at ECO.
My name's Hannah Helene, and I'm the Environmental Programs Manager for ECO. So I manage a couple grants, and then I do some seasonal fieldwork and sampling.
Here's what's on Hannah's agenda today. Berry density surveys.
And what are we doing today?
So we're going out to do berry density surveys. So we've been doing this winterberry project, collaborating with UAF for a really long time, kind of paused a few years because of COVID, and then we're trying to get it up and going again this year. And typically that's surveying berries throughout the year and looking at the quality of the berries. And that's because for a lot of animals, in the springtime when the snow's melting, berries are like the first food available for them. And so I think there's like a lot of animals that really depend on that source. Like probably I don't know for sure, but probably the Pribilof Island vole. And also there's tons of subsistence that goes on with the berries. Like lots of people go out picking, especially this time of year. And so we're kind of just wanting to understand like what's going on with berries, what causes like a good berry year, what causes a bad berry year. And so this year we're adding these like density surveys to a program that's been going on for a little while.
So, which types of berries are picked here for subsistence, and which berries are we looking for today?
So mossberries and cloudberries are the two that are picked here for subsistence. We're looking for anything we find, but I'm kind of trying to target the mossberries because usually those are a little bit more abundant.
Okay.
But if we find some cloudberries, I'll count those too.
Okay.
And for that, we drive a little further out of the city to a spot that's famous for berry picking in the community.
I think people usually take the road that goes up there to the right.
Yeah, I'll probably park down here because this truck is new.
Mm-hmm.
I've also been in this direction too. And there's some over there too.
Okay.
For this first one, I'm just going to kind of throw the hoop and then see where it ends up. And then for the next few ones, I'll walk.
As you can hear, the wind is blowing. This is quite typical for St. Paul. But what happens here is this. Hannah has a kind of hula hoop, which she throws behind her with closed eyes to randomize the sampling. Where the hoop lands, the berries in the hoop are counted.
And I'm hoping it's not going to blow away. I'm a little concerned about that. So we did get a few in this spot, and then I'll just kind of scan through and count everything I see. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's hard not to eat them as I'm doing this. 11. This is thrilling work. All right, I think I've got 43 in this patch, and they're all mossberries. So I'm running down just how many berries I saw and what kind of berries they were, and also which plot. All right, so now I'm gonna figure out which direction is north, which the city is on the very southern tip of St. Paul, so I kind of orient myself that way, which means this direction more or less is gonna be north. It doesn't need to be perfect, I just want to make sure that we're being fairly random with what plot I select. And then I am going to take, so if that's north, we're going to take 6 steps west, which is not ideal because that puts us right into the scoria. But it's what we're going to do.
So we do the whole thing 5 times in 5 random patches. We throw the hoop, count the different types of berries in each spot, and take a few notes about their quality. Then we're heading back to the car.
Can I just throw the hoop back into the back seat?
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Whew. I'm glad I brought my gloves.
Yeah, you can get pretty chilly.
So, considering that St. Paul Island is such a small community, I feel like ECO does a whole ton of work to monitor the wildlife and the environment down here, out here. Is this special for a remote community like this?
I think most communities have a program that's similar to ECO in some ways, but I think in terms of the the scope of things that we do, we're pretty special. We're really lucky to have a quite large team, and we're able to handle quite a lot. But even so, we're still pretty busy. So
I ask Hannah if she feels that ECO is succeeding with all its efforts. Does their work really have an impact?
Absolutely. I mean, especially with things like the entanglement program. Like, all the time we get reports from community members, or we see on surveys that there's an entangled seal, and then we go out and we're able to take care of it. And I think that program has been a huge success, and it's really cool to see how much it's grown. And I'm a very, very small part of it. Usually I'm just taking pictures of the entanglement, but it's a super cool program, and we're lucky to have it.
And not only that, ECO is also organizing an annual marine debris cleanup. Last year I even took part myself.
Hard to see because there's always going to be more debris in the ocean, but it is awesome to see how much we're able to get off the beaches every year. I do think it makes a huge impact. And that's something I think we'll continue doing for a long period of time. So it's a really great program.
And actually, I think the building we just passed by, I heard that ECO is planning to open the Bering Sea Research Center over there. Are you excited about this, being a scientist yourself?
Super excited. Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that we have right now is we don't really have a lab space, so I'll be doing things kind of just in our office space that would be, it would be much easier if we did have a lab. So I'm really excited to be able to use that space. I think it's going to make our jobs a lot easier, and I think we're going to be able to do a whole ton of things that we can't do right now, which is really exciting, and I think the possibilities are pretty endless.
And it's great to then also be able to include the local community in this research. And
absolutely, I think research should be happening where the people are living. Like, it's a little silly to take these samples and then have to send them to, a university in the lower 48, which is, hundreds of miles away and doesn't really understand the Pribilof Islands or the people, or like what's important to them, their values, what they want to be researched. So I think kind of putting the power of research and the possibilities of what can be done in the people who actually, in the hands of the people who actually live here is invaluable.
So the Bering Sea Research Center could really be a way to build even more research capacity on St. Paul, create new jobs, and get more people involved in understanding and protecting the environment. Meeting Serafima, Lauren, and Hannah showed me there are a lot of initiatives on St. Paul Island that are really trying to support this beautiful community and its unique ecosystem. Even if we sometimes forget this, considering the many challenges around us. I don't know about you, but I definitely already have a more positive picture in my mind of what the future could look like on St. Paul Island. What I have noticed, though, is that when we talk about how we envision our future, we usually only talk about it among us adults. But the future mostly concerns our youth. So shouldn't we also consider the wishes of our children when you talk about the future we're steering towards? Before I finish my journey through the St. Paul Island food system, I meet Destiny Kushin.
My name is Destiny. I'm 19 years old, and I'm from St. Paul Island, Alaska. I lived here and in Anchorage, which is like 700 miles away from here, but I mainly lived here, and I like it better here than in Anchorage because it's like has more freedom, I guess, and like less society issues and stuff like that. It's more freeing instead of being stuck in a city every day.
Destiny is one of the most active young subsistence providers in the community. She actively participates in the subsistence fur seal harvest, goes hunting, or cooks traditional foods with her grandma, Kukazi, who you met in episode 2. She also works at the local coffee shops and makes the best fraps.
I don't like to think that I'm one of the very few, because there is very few of us. Like in general, like on the total population, there's a very few of us, but I think a lot of us do subsistence. We participate in the seal harvest, we participate in berry picking and all that kind of stuff. But I think the thing that motivates me to do it is because it's traditions that I want to pass on to my children and my children's children when I'm a kuka someday, and that's mostly the motivation that drives me, and I enjoy doing it. It's really fun, and being able to provide for your community members that can't do it anymore, it's just very nice. Like it warms your heart a little bit. Yeah.
And you just said that you want to pass on these skills and the knowledge to your kids and grandchildren. Who has passed that on to you? Like, what did your elders or your caretakers teach you?
So my grandma was born around the government days when it was like forbidden for women to go, but they still had to participate in some way or another. And she taught me the ways to cook and clean seal and cut it and give it out. And she taught me how to preserve it in salt and do all that stuff. But it's mainly learning from my kuka, watching her in the kitchen, because I lived with her for a while. But I also learned a lot from my mom. She taught me how to cook too, taught me how to do a lot of stuff around the house. But yeah, I think it all started with my mom and my dad and my kuka teaching me how to go reindeer hunting and fishing and all that stuff.
I think Destiny is a great example of how tradition meets modernity in the island's current food system. As much as she loves a good frap with strawberry cream, she continues to cherish her native subsistence foods. I'm asking her if she has witnessed any ecosystem changes in her short lifetime here in St. Paul.
There's a picture I like to think about. It's like a poster. There's 3 pictures on it. A picture of around when my grandma was born, around the years my grandma was born, and then a picture of around the years I was born. And you could see the complete difference. There's the entire fields and beaches lined up with seals. Looks like it's really cool to look at, but now it's just like very few spots. But it's good that they're coming back. I am hoping to see an increase in their populations in the future. It's kind of sad to think that they're not going to be here if we keep going the way we're going. But I think the biggest thing that I see a difference in is the erosion due to global warming. And you can see it along the edges of the islands, like along the cliffs and along the sides of the hills and stuff like that. Every year a little piece falls, and it's just going to keep going because we don't have any sea ice that helps protect the cliffs from the winter. So I think that's the biggest thing I've seen.
Destiny says the seals won't be here anymore if we keep going the way we're going. I ask her what she means by that.
I think the fact of overfishing, not by our community, but by industrial fishermen. They have trawlers that go around here, not too close, but they still come around here. They take the pollock. They see our seals as a competition, so they try and get more pollock than they can get, and that's one of the reasons our populations are declining. And our halibut populations, especially bottom trawlers, they're detrimental to our environment, and you can see it in the numbers that we get. The elders talk about like going out for a few hours way back when, and they'd come back with like 20 to 30 halibut. We can go out for like 6 hours and come back with 2 or 3, which is kind of sad. But yeah, that plus global warming, that's plays the biggest part in it too. And I don't know, I hope we find a way to become more eco-friendly in the future.
A few elders told us, when the seals are gone, we are gone. How do you think about that? Does that resonate with you?
Yes, it really does, because a lot of our history is based on the seals. The main reason we're here is because of the seals during the Russian days and the government days, and it's sad to think that people are forgetting about that. And the fact that not a lot of people know about it because it was so well kept as a secret. And I think that when our seals are gone, there won't be much of a reason to be here other than sustaining other traditions. But it's going to be sad to like one day hear no seals on the beach or no seals on the rookeries, and it's kind of like a sound that stays in your mind forever, but you want to constantly keep hearing it because it brings back so many memories. And I think it does resonate with a lot of youth, and it's a very important part of our lives.
I can really feel how Destiny is troubled by the idea that the seals might be gone one day. I wonder what her view of the future is.
When you imagine St. Paul Island in the year 2050, what do you see? Like, what do you think this place will look like and the society here will be like?
I have 2 possible visions. I have it looking like it did in, say, the 1980s with a lot of people back here, or looking like the other island that's 40 miles away with, say, 90 people. So I'm hoping it goes. I hope it grows. I hope people come back, but that all depends on our economy and our ecosystem and stuff like that. And I hope I'm going to live here with my kids either way. I don't care. I hope to see more kids participating in traditional activities. I encourage a lot of my friends to participate with me and learn from me and do stuff like that. I think it's very important when an adult teaches a child, because a lot of children nowadays don't have parents that know how to do a lot of things, and that's why they don't go out, and that's why they're scared to go out. And I'm like, you have a lot of kids learning from these elders, you can be learning too.
Destiny is such a strong advocate for the rights of her community. If young adults like her are the future of St. Paul, I truly believe there's hope. But how can we eliminate Destiny's negative vision of St. Paul Island in the future and make her positive vision become reality instead? I want to talk to Lauren Devine one last time and ask her what kind of image she has in mind when she imagines St. Paul Island in 2050.
I try to think about what the community will look like in 2050, and we do this often, but more often we think of it in terms of 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, and I think that's really important because it breaks down and thinks about what we do now. And so I'm thinking of the seeds that we're planting now in hopes of seeing them blossom in the future and what that looks like. And so it's important, I think, to have all of these seeds now. Things like the Prime Initiative, the Bering Sea Research Center, our Field to Market reindeer, the options around mariculture, all of these things that we're doing that relate to improved food security. I see those seeds being planted now in order to have a future where there are more people living on island. There are additional young families that are on island receiving high quality education, doing all kinds of activities that their ancestors did. They're on boats, they're paddling, they're fishing, they're hunting, they're gathering, they're making oils and salves and, using medicinal plants, and they're sharing. And of course, all of that relates into, ceremony and sharing meals, dances, potlucks or potlatches, and community gatherings that are intergenerational, where you have this revival of elders coming together around food and sharing stories and teaching, and the language is being shared. And, you have a significant amount of the community that is speaking not in English, but in Unangam Tunu, the original language and the native language of the people, and relating that to the activities that they're doing. And you have these healthy people that are living very high quality, long lives, and lots of laughter and enjoyment and togetherness. And I just see that as such a strong community in the future. And in order to get there, there's a lot of healing from trauma. There's a lot of solutions around equity. There's a lot of addressing things like food security and creating more stability and strength in the community. And I think that's where we're all working towards, and what all of our initiatives are, these seeds that we're planting now. That's really what all of that is meant to contribute to in the future.
I am glad that Lauren has such a positive vision for the future of St. Paul. And I can tell it's contagious. I want to believe in it too. But I also understand that in the face of all these crises, many people feel paralyzed. And not only in St. Paul, but all over the world. So how can we still motivate ourselves to fight for a better future?
I think it is quite easy to get paralyzed when you think of the doom and gloom that kind of faces us every day. And if you want to be very depressed or feel paralyzed, there's so many ways to expose yourself to data, information, conversations that can make you feel like there's just no hope. And I think the biggest thing is to keep an internal dialogue that is positive and that does look at positivity and hope, and to focus on the things that you can control and your own role within making a positive change. So I know there's a lot that's out there that that really minimizes individuals and individual change. There's not a lot that you can do if you're reducing your carbon footprint, right? As an individual, it's not really going to make a difference, but it is those individuals that come together that create collective action. And if we don't maintain the importance of individuals and our roles and constantly keep ourselves trained to have hope, to make small changes that will add up, to look at our role in creating positive change. I think that's my way of keeping myself from feeling paralyzed. There is a lot of negativity. It is so easy to get wrapped up into it and to want to quit, but it's maintaining a drive and seeing the positive lining and surrounding yourself with like-minded people that, you know, also look to make a change and understand that it is important on an individual level to come together and create something bigger than the individual. That's really how we're going to tackle these big changes. And I think it's also been really encouraging to learn more about the solutions that we're going to need and how many of them are nature-based, indigenous-based. It really, if you look at indigenous values of any indigenous group of people, they're remarkably similar in the values that they take, and they're all about respect and reciprocity and relationship. And if you focus on those things, I think you stay out of a negativity mindset and you can really focus on the positive. And so that's really where I've found the most success. And when I feel like anything that I do is not making a difference, then all I have to do is look around and look at the relationships that I have with people and with nature that I've been very fortunate to have, and, you know, see that there is a future that does look better. We just have to all keep moving in one direction. And so the way that we do that is not being paralyzed, but keep moving.
I am convinced a better future for St. Paul is possible. It must be. Over the course of the past months, I have over and over witnessed the strength and the resiliency of the Aleut community of St. Paul Island. And I strongly believe the global community can learn from them too. Whether on St. Paul Island or in my home country, we all are and will be affected by the consequences of the climate crisis and the increasing destruction of our ecosystems. We must develop solutions, and we must act now. This was Tipping the Iceberg. The show is brought to you as part of my PhD project at Utrecht University in the Netherlands and was created in collaboration with the Aleut Community of St. Paul Island. If you liked this episode, please leave a review or share it with a friend. Idea and realization, Silja Zimmermann. Edit and production, Wiebe de Jong. Recording, Sebastian Reinartz. The artwork for the logo comes from Lydia Dirks. As an outsider, a white young woman from Germany, I am conscious of the profound wounds that colonization inflicted upon indigenous communities all over the world. I step onto St. Paul Island with deep respect, profound humility, and an earnest desire to understand and learn, not impose. The generosity of the Aleut community in sharing their wisdom is a privilege, not a right, and I'm ever thankful for this opportunity to listen and to learn.